Hi there, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Anita Adufuye, author of Revealed, where I share my personal story on navigating child sexual abuse and suicide and depression and how I came out of that. I'm also the founder of Advanced and Fulfilled Coaching Company, where I help racialized individuals in Canada advance their careers and live fulfilled lives. I'm also the founder of Loud Silences. It's a blogging platform that helps to uncover and speak to, educate, enlighten on the topic of sexual violence and mental health. And finally, I'm the founder of Ladies Arise. And this is where it's a community of women where we get together to learn, inspire one another to live intentional and purposeful lives. And this is just a few of the many hats that I wear because, of course, I'm also a YouTuber, as you can see, because you're here. And if you're not subscribed, I encourage you to go ahead right now, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and so that you know every time that I put out a new video. So yeah, all that said, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. How many Mother's Day are there? I don't know. But every day, in my opinion, really should be Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers. And yeah, I hope you're having fun. I know of the one in May, so I'm looking forward to that. But I'm also glad to have the one today. Okay, so today we will be talking about something that centers on sexual violence. Yes, fun topic. All right. So, a quick question, and this really is a rhetorical question. Why is sexual harassment so evasive and hard to address? Now, if you have seen the movie She Said, you probably know that that question was a question that was asked by Laura Madden, who is, I believe she was one of the boss to the two investigative reporters in that story who had helped uncover the ills of a man called Harvey Weinstein against several women in Hollywood. And these reporters were Megan Towie and Judy Cantor. And yeah, so that question really pricked me, when I was watching this recently. And, I had to stop to really think about it. Yes, sometimes that is what I do when I watch movies. I get very philosophical, I get very analytical, and I make a lot of connections and dots, but I do not want to bore you with all of that. But really, that question was a very interesting question, and quite frankly, I thought about it, and I would like to answer that question. So, here are 6 reasons that I want to share very quickly as to that I think that helps answer some of that question. Quite frankly, there are a lot of lessons that you learn from that movie, and well, more to come on that. But anyway, 6 responses. Why is sexual harassment so evasive and so hard to address? Number one, there are enablers. Who is an enabler? An enabler is somebody who sees something going on and they choose to keep quiet. An enabler is a mother who knows that her husband her husband is abusing their child or stepchild or whatever and chooses to keep mute. An enabler is somebody who knows about someone who is an abuser but refuses to speak up for the victim and or stand up for the victim. So quite frankly, the truth is that if you choose to not put preventive measures, organizations can be enablers in that they have systems or policies or the lack of systems and policies that protect people from sexual harassment or sexual violence. When I think about school systems, for instance, I went to university where if you schooled in universities in Nigeria at the time that I did, sexual harassment is like the order of the day. If you're a woman, especially, quite frankly, men were not left out, but much more so for the women. If you're a woman, lecturers constantly try to harass you sexually and try to get you to sleep with them for grades. So within the school system, there were not policies in place to protect students from such things because when people come forward, nobody says anything. Those are enablers. A church can be an enabler if they have no policies that protect against sexual abuse. So anybody and anything really can be an enabler. And that is one of the reasons why sexual harassment continues to be evasive. So you see something, you choose to say nothing, you are an enabler. Question for you. Are you an enabler? All right. So secondly is that we put the burden, reason number 2 is that we put the burden of ending sexual violence on the survivors. Quite frankly, someone is already in a state of mind where they're going through things that they cannot even begin to explain. and you expect them to be their own voice, to be their own fighters, to be their own advocates. It doesn't work that way. You see, one of the things I quickly learned in that movie, and I've also come to learn in my own life and in my own journey of coming out of of the impact of sexual abuse, is that the victims cannot, on their own, by themselves, make it work. And that is the truth. And so, in She Said, for instance, right, we see that there were investigative journalists that were at work, there were organizations that were at work, there were people. It was an all hands on deck approach. It wasn't just something that people were, expecting the victims to, or the survivors to actually deal with. So, when we really shift the conversation and stop acting in ways that make it sound as if it is the onus lies on survivors to do this, then we would really start to make some headway. Because for survivors here, since there are triggers, panic attacks, anxiety attacks that plague them. All right. And sometimes, when you have them, when you put them in a position where they have to be their own advocates, what you're asking them to do oftentimes is something called re-traumatization. All right. And not everybody is in that space. Some of us are happy to advocate, haven't gone through series of things that, we fought through. All right. And we're on the other side. And thank God for that. But it takes more than one, it takes more than just survivors to really end this. So, anyway, reason number three is that sexual harassment, sexual violence has become very systemic and unfortunately, in most places, is rooted in culture. And what do I mean by that? Now, through in so many cultures, and I can speak even very much so to the culture that I belong to. I'm Nigerian Canadian, so I have African culture behind me. I have Nigerian culture behind me, right? From cultures like you cannot say that an elder is wrong, or you cannot counter something they said because then you're calling them a liar. So, for instance, in my book, in my story, I shared about how when my mom had asked me, told my mom that my dad was doing stuff to me, and she asked him about it in front of me. And that put me in a position where if I said anything else beyond that point, then it becomes so you're calling your father a liar. Nobody wants that. So cultures like that, cultures where we speak as if women are second class citizens, cultures like that actually help perpetrate sexual violence. Cultures that make it seem as if one gender is superior to another perpetrate things like that. Cultures, even like hip cultures or whatever, media culture, whatever kind of culture where they objectify women as sex objects, those kinds of culture unfortunately um, help to increase sexual violence, and it is something that really needs to be dealt with. It is systemic in that sometimes from how we report sexual abuse cases to how they're treated in the justice system to how they go about gathering evidences, the whole system in itself is not friendly towards the victim. Many people would have to endure series of recounting the stories in courtrooms and depositions. Like even if you choose to fight, you're going to have to go through that. Honestly, a lot of victims do not have the emotional capacity to go through that kind of rigor. Again, it's re-traumatization, and not everybody has the energy to go through that kind of rigor. So, quite frankly, what does our system look like? What does our culture look like? What does our church culture look like? Because when we say culture, quite frankly, it can be in so many ways. So, um, cultures like mine, we silence women and especially younger people. It's often the loudest voice in the room. The problem is that one voice is always speaking, the other is already silenced even before they got to that room. So, where's the hope? So, reason number three why it feels like it is evasive and hard to deal with is that it is rooted in culture and it is systemic. And like any form of, systemic oppression, it will take a lot more than the oppressed to actually make any real change. So, how can you be part of the change that needs to be made. Think about that. So, reason number four, why sexual harassment is evasive and hard to deal with, because enough people are not speaking up. Now I know that this sounds very, it sounds like I'm countering what I said earlier, where I said that you don't put all the expectations on the survivors. Yes, you don't put all the expectations, but let me speak to survivors here for a moment. Truth be told, we have a role to play in this. Truth be told, we have a role to play. And I think about, she said, the investigative journalists, they had their hearts in the right place. They wanted to help. I should warn you guys ahead, by the way. For some reason, I'm a little touchy today. So if you see me get teary, just go with the flow. Okay. So yeah, back to reality. Back to the conversation. Um, yeah, the investigative journalists, the New York Times, they could have tried to push for this story all they wanted. But if no one came forward to speak up, we won't be talking about this today. The Harvey Weinsteins of the world will continually be there. One of the regrets that I have, and quite frankly, is that when I look back at my own story and my experience, I did speak up. There were times I tried to speak up. I just didn't know how, and I wish that somebody else helped to amplify my voice. I just didn't find somebody to amplify my voice. But I gave up. I gave up trying to speak up ever. All right. Until, much later in life. And as I look back, I just wish that I stood my ground and spoke up and continued to speak until somebody was willing to amplify my voice for me. And better late than never. And I don't even think that it was late. I think that the timing just worked out perfectly fine. But if I could go back and undo this, I'd rather it didn't happen. But if there was one thing I would change, is that I would continue to speak until I found somebody who could amplify my voice. Because the truth is that if we refuse to speak up, then the evil continues. Then nobody knows. There is probably somebody in your circle who would be willing to amplify your voice if you would dare to speak up. So please, please, I beg you, speak up. I know it's hard. I know it's painful. I know you don't want to recount it. But please, you never know. You might be the only hope that somebody else would ever get a chance to have. Please, painful as it is, speak up. Okay? And there are so many ways to speak up, from reporting what happened to sharing your own story. In Loud Silences now, we're collecting stories of people. Look, sometimes even just sharing your story, it helps you unburden. And I know that there are times that you might feel like what has happened is choking you. But in those moments, what I need you to do is find some courage in you. Find something in you and hold on to that and speak up. Share how you felt. Share, what you're looking forward to get out of, on the other side, how you're working through your journey, where you're at, what you're doing, how it impacted you. Share all of those things. If you want to share, please go on Loud Silences. You'll see a place where you can share your story with us. Feel free to share your story. Many people will be encouraged by it. Some people just need to know that they are not alone. There are people who would hear my voice, and my voice only maybe. But there are people who your voice is the only one they might ever need to, they can resonate with them. Please do not deny them that. So please, let's speak up. Painful as it is. Number 5. This continues because sometimes people, and by people, survivors really are trying to protect their loved ones. And I know that is hard for a lot of people to understand. There's a scene in that movie where I can't remember which of them now, but there was a man that they had reached out to, and he said, well, I have my children to protect, and quite frankly, I get it. Sadly, some of these people that sometimes they're trying to protect, or we're trying to protect, are enablers. And in other cases, they're also the perpetrators. When I think about my own experience, I was always thinking about how the idea that my own father was sexually abusing me will come off to his family. I thought about what that would mean for my brothers. I didn't want them to see their father any differently from the picture and image that they had. And truth be told, if you've heard me speak of my father, you know that I was still am very fond of my father. Like, I mean, I'm his exact carbon copy. And dare I say I was his favorite child. Yeah, that came out wrong. Anyway, um, so when I take away the experience of child abuse and molestation out of our lives, quite frankly, all I'm left with is a fun father who, quite honestly speaking, taught me so much about life. A lot of the things that have helped me through life, it's funny, I learned from my father. And that's the truth. A lot of things on how to be a woman, a lot of things on valuing education, a lot of things on learning. My father and I share the passion of lifelong learning from my father. With my father, sorry. There are so many things that I have learned from him that I admire and hold so dearly. And quite frankly, there was also a part of me that wanted to hold on more to that part. And so sharing or even trying to talk about that he did this to me is acknowledging, it's almost as if a part of me is saying my father is a monster and I do not want to think that. And so I was trying to protect him. I was trying to protect my brothers. I was trying to protect his family. I was trying to protect everybody. But then he left me with a question: who protects me? Right? And so, quite frankly, oftentimes we're trying to protect our loved ones, and I get it. But the truth is that think about other people who might end up becoming victims because you did not protect them as well. There are times that I in my adult life, I came to, think that what if there were other people my age my father was abusing? If I had said something much more louder than when I did, would that have helped protect them? I don't know. I remember talking to a girl one time back in the day, and who I referenced as landlord in my book, she was sharing with me, and she just started bawling and talked about how he was abusing her, and she and I actually bonded over that. And I shared with her too that he was doing the same. And we talked about how we're going to just avoid him and, you know, prevent as preventive measures. But I can't help but imagine if I had shared with other people that this man was doing this, would that girl have been protected? Or if she had shared, would I have been protected? So, yes, we're trying to protect our loved ones. But again, that's why we also need to speak up because we're trying to protect them. Maybe the best protection is that they don't go further than beyond us to abuse other people. And we need to protect those other people as well. So, number six, the survivors are protecting themselves. So, yes, it's not just others we're trying to protect, we're also trying to protect ourselves. You know, we're trying to protect ourselves from being named and shamed. We're trying to protect ourselves from being told we're the reason we did something to cause that. Because, quite frankly, I don't know why anybody would ever want to be raped. That's what you mean when you're saying people caused it, that they wanted to be raped. Nobody wakes up and says, today's a great day. What would I do? Greatest achievement. I should get raped. No, nobody does that. Okay, so yeah, so we might not speak up and we might not say anything sometimes because we're trying to protect ourselves from all the things that can go wrong. All right, and even sometimes our brain tries to protect us too, so it shuts down and tries to help us forget that that happened. So sometimes someone might take 16 years before the pieces of what happened starts to return to them. It's not because they enjoyed it. It's not because they chose to be silent, but something they know something happened, but something in their brains just shut down. And this is scientific. I don't know all the science behind it. Google it. So but anyway, it's the brain's way of trying to protect us from trauma. And after a while, it starts to come back. Unfortunately, it always does come back. At one point or the other, it will come back. So anyway, so yeah, 6 reasons why. Here are the 6 reasons. And Each of these parts can be, if everything kind of works together, we can protect people better. And quite frankly, as we see in that movie, the joy for me is that it didn't end every perpetrator, but it ended a perpetrator, and it brought to light a bigger issue within a place like Hollywood. The question is, what if we did that in our churches, in our homes, in our communities, in our cultures? What if we just did that in our countries, in our workplaces, in our schools? We might be able to pull down systems that make it seem hard to fight sexual violence. So, do you see yourself reflected in any of this? What do you need to start doing knowing this? What do you need to stop doing? What do you need to reorientate yourself with that you think that can help? How do you see yourself being a part of this and helping to end it? Because truth be told, anything that we want to end in this world, we really can end. We want to end wars, it's up to us as humans. We want to end poverty, we can do it. We want to end illiteracy, we can do it. But there are people who seem to benefit from these things. And so they're like principalities who will stand against changing the system. But if there are enough people willing to work together and fight together, history has proven over and over again that any system can be pulled down. But the question is, what are you willing to do? As I wrap up, I just want to say this. Unfortunately, there are times that people have asked me questions like, why did I decide to wash my family's dirty linen outside? And some of them are family members too. And it's okay. I'm not angry. I'm not upset. Because the truth is that there's something they don't know. If you've been in the shoes where I've been, and as many other people have been, you would know that I have a responsibility to speak up. And so it is me doing my own part in my own way. No matter how little it might seem, that's part of me doing my own part. And I'll continue to do my part. I'll continue to speak about this. I'll continue to educate. I'll continue to empower people as they come across my own path. And I'll continue to do whatever I can. Heck, if I need to write a book again, I will do it 1,000 times over. So, we all have work to do. I just hope that you're willing to do your part. What is that part? Well, thank you for watching. I know it's a little solemn today. It's the weather, guys. I just came back from Mexico where the weather was warm and sunny and nice. And then I go to Saskatchewan and then it's all cold and, Saskatchewan. So blame it on that. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope that you've learned something. I'd like to hear what you learned. I'd like to hear what you're taking away from this. As always, do not forget to share. Do not forget to like. Do not forget to drop a comment. And if you are not yet subscribed, please do so. All right. I talk about careers on this channel as well. I talk about, topics like this, depression, mental health. I share my own stories sometimes. And sometimes I might share some, nugget or two from my faith life as well. So feel free to connect. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you. And to all mothers, please have an amazing time today. Self-care, self-love. Okay, bye.